Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, Passover, Easter. The winter months are filled with so many holidays that bring together family and friends. You know who gets the most attention? That big piece of protein, the turkey, the brisket, the ham. It's not fair. The side dishes just don't get the love they deserve. Well, I'm here to rectify that today with several very easy, tasty side dishes. One of my favorites comes from my colleague and Middle Eastern chef, Sara. It's Brussels sprouts with panko, dressed with a divine tahini sauce, and you can make it ahead. And what about butternut squash, intense and deep yellow, shredded so it cooks fast and then dressed up with dates and pistachios? It is tasty and fancy enough for any company. If you're like me, you get hungry cooking all this food. So I've got a seasonal snack to tide you over. And because it's cold outside, how about a nice hot soup with winter-friendly root vegetables, creamy and chunky at the same time and topped with crunchy pita chips? Come to think of it, you can make all three of these side dishes for one weeknight meal and tell the main dish to take the night off. I guarantee you it will not be boring. 3 great holiday side dishes coming up on Sarah's Weeknight Meals. Funding provided by
the 2016 Subaru Legacy. With symmetrical all-wheel drive plus 36 mpg. It pairs well with every kind of road. Subaru, proud sponsor of Sarah's Weeknight Meals.
And thanks to the generous support of Okay, so I'm going to start with a creamy root vegetable soup that's topped with everything pita crisps. And I first discovered it, a different version, this is my interpretation, at this wonderful spa I go to every year and teach classes in Austin, Texas. And I so loved the soup, I was like, I'm going to come up with my own. So we start with our onions because most good hot soups start with onions. Let me just get these in the pan quickly. And then I want to talk to you about how to slice an onion. Because believe it or not, it makes a difference. Let me just get this in there. I've got 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil in here and a cup and a half of thinly sliced onion. And we don't want to get too much color in them, we just want to soften them. So here we have a whole onion. When you slice it, you want to take off both ends. There you go. First. You don't peel it first, because why would you? Because after you cut it in half, it's so much easier to peel. Now, when you look at an onion, I'm just going to peel half of it. When you look at an onion, you're going to see something that you probably noticed in meat. There is a grain. It goes this way. So how you want to slice an onion is with the grain. When you slice an onion with the grain, that means it will keep its shape much better. Why? Because when you cut across the grain, it's like you're chopping it up, so it falls apart. Onions have sulfur compounds in them, and that sulfur compound is what gives off those fumes that makes you cry. And now we're going to talk about how you cook an onion, which is what we're doing right here. The appropriate way, I turned it down, I'm cooking it slowly, is those sulfur compounds are activated by an enzyme. And when they're activated, they're very pungent and very strong. But if you cook them low and slow, that pungency dulls down, and not only that, becomes very sweet. So there you go. Now, those are just about ready. I'm going to add my garlic. We don't add the garlic right away because we don't want it to burn. So in goes the garlic. And we cook that for about another minute. And then we're going to add the other root vegetables. Now, we've got equal parts here, 3/4 pound each of parsnips, carrots, and turnips. Now, here's what's interesting. Anytime you make a soup, if you have a lot of vegetables in it and you puree it, you don't need a thickener. It's naturally thick. But just in case, I add my little super weapon, which is a potato. Now, this is Yukon Gold. I love Yukon Golds because they're gold, so we think they're buttery, but they have a wonderful potato flavor. Now, you noticed I had them floating in water here. That's because when I prepped, I peeled them, I chopped them, I put them in water so they wouldn't oxidize and turn color. So now I'm going to add 4 cups of chicken broth or vegetable broth or water, and then I'm going to get another 2 cups of water from the sink and just add that in too. Because we don't want this to be too tasting of the stock. We want it to taste of the root vegetables. That's what's so wonderful about this. And make sure they're nicely covered. They're just perfectly covered. So this comes up to a boil. We turn it down to a simmer. We're going to give it 15 minutes until you can tell the vegetables are very tender. And then we're going to puree it and carry on. Now we're going to get the garnish together here. I have a parsnip. I don't like just plain old creamy soups. I like texture. So that's why not only do I start with a creamy soup, I then add little bits of cut up vegetables. And I already have done my 3/4 pound of turnip and carrot. So just a nice dice. Let me add these to the other guys, and then we're going to puree the soup. Oh yes, that smells wonderful. Nothing says fall like root vegetables, you know. I can see that that's nice and tender, yep. Okay, puree the soup while it's hot. Now, you have to be careful because heat expands, as we all know. So I'm going to put the soup in here while it's hot, but you only fill the blender about 1/3 of the way full. Put a lid on the blender, make sure there's a little air vent, and put a towel over the whole thing. Okay, so you start out slow, and then you move it up. There you go. I'm going to transfer this to a bowl and puree the rest of it. Isn't that beautiful? Look at that color. Remember, there's no thickener in there. Okay. So I'm going to add the diced vegetables to the pureed soup and let that simmer. These only take about 15-20 minutes to get tender. Okay, while that simmers, I'm going to move on to the pita crisps. So we're going to start with the topping. It's everything bagel topping. So we need 2 teaspoons each of poppy seeds, 2 teaspoons of sesame seeds, 2 teaspoons of flaked garlic, not garlic powder. Garlic powder is too fine. And the same of the granulated or flaked onion. And then we need a little bit of salt, 3/4 teaspoon. All right, so that is our everything bagel topping. So then I'm going to cut the pitas in half using a serrated knife. So in order to have them, you have to get down with a serrated knife and take your time. Make sure they're very fresh, because if they're stale, you won't be able to do this. And if it tears a little bit, don't worry, this is not rocket science. Okay, there we go. All right. So you have to do this in batches. I'm going to do like 3 at a time. And I'm going to brush them with a neutral oil. I like grapeseed. That's my vegetable oil of choice. And this is what's going to glue the topping on. Meanwhile, I preheated the oven to 375. Okay, I'm going to cut these guys up. And then, I'll just do it like this, make my life easy. Stack them up. We're going to do these in 6ths. So let me move all of this down here to my rimmed sheet pan. Here we go. Line them up like the Rockettes. It makes your life easier. And then our everything bagel topping. You could use, you know, if you would like to, something else appealed to you, maybe smoked paprika would be fun, and cumin. I just happen to like this because I love those everything bagels. Into the oven we go, 375 for about 8 minutes. It depends on how dark you want them. So I'm going to taste the soup. You always need to taste the soup at the end. First, let's look at the texture. So I think I'm going to leave the texture just as it is because it looks perfect, but often I have to add up to another cup of water. So you just decide what texture you like, how thick or thin. So let's see. Oh, that's so good. Whoa. I'm going to add some pepper, just a little pepper. I haven't added any up till now, and a little bit of lemon juice. A tablespoon and a half of lemon juice. All right, perfect. So I'm going to go grab my pita crisps, and we're going to plate up our soup. Wow, isn't that beautiful, the color on those? I just can't have soup without some sort of toast or bread. Okay. Oh, I forgot something very important. You need something a little salty to finish it and also to make it more substantial. As I said, this could be an entree. So we've got some feta crumbled up, and now I'm going to serve it up. This would be the perfect soup, really, for a first course of a holiday meal. But it would also be a great entree, or in the middle of the day. Oh my gosh, that color is just something else. So there you have it, my root vegetable soup with feta crumbles and everything pita crisps. The perfect soup for the fall and winter. It's hard to believe that you'd be hungry in the middle of a day like this, but yes, you would be, especially if the meal's not till 4. So I have the perfect little healthy snack for you. They're apple nutmeg bites. We're going to start with a cup and a half of dried apples. So we're going to put everything in this mini chopper here. And then we have a half a cup of dried dates. Half a tablespoon of agave syrup. You could use maple syrup or honey. It's your choice what you want to use as a sweetener. We have a half a teaspoon of nutmeg, 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, and finally a half a cup of toasted walnuts. Now I'm going to roll the mixture into balls. And just little balls, bite size is perfect. Boy, these are perfect for a long day of cooking. I was so excited when I discovered the shredding disc on my food processor. I mean, that thing that was in the box in the cupboard with the dust that you ignored. One day I took it out to do beets for the husband, okay, beets. But then I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna do everything in this shredder. So since then, I've tried to shred everything known to man. But what it's really great for is root vegetables, hard vegetables, vegetables that take a while to cook. So today, I'm going to use this shredding disc to make my sauteed shredded butternut squash with dates, pistachios, and lemon. Let's talk about butternut squash. We love it. It's in the vining family, which is the same family as melons and cucumber. I'm just going to start peeling it. Be very careful. The one thing about it, it's dangerous. So I'm going to start right in the middle and get it in half so I can lay it flat before I peel it, okay? But it's a fruit. Although we eat it as a vegetable, although think about it, how sweet it is. But it stays in the ground longer, so it gets thicker outer skin. But that's wonderful because then it cures longer, it grows longer, and it's got more depth of flavor. So after you get it all peeled like this, you cut this in half, and then you can just, let's say I'd already peeled this, and then you just scoop out the seeds. Of course, you can also buy it already cut into chunks. However, make sure that it looks nice and moist in the package. So, on to shredding. So the fun thing about shredding is that it's a good activity at the end of a bad day. You know, at the office, the kids have been misbehaving, you put everything in there, and you just hit the button. It gets out all that aggression. Wasn't that fun? So I'm going to get my shallots cooking here. A little bit of oil, a couple tablespoons. We're just using grapeseed oil, which is flavorless. You could use safflower or sunflower also. In go our shallots. I've got 3 medium, and we're just going to soften these for a few minutes. Now I want to talk about dates. What's so wonderful about dates is that they're a very good source of fiber, 3 grams per serving, and they also are high in potassium, very good for your digestive system, and they're naturally tree sweetened. So it's the kind of sugar that's just good energy. You can buy them whole. Cutting them up then, I need 3 large dates for this, is a little sticky business, so you can take some flour, put it on your knife, and chop them that way. You can squeeze a little lemon on them, which helps, or you can freeze them, which you can do with any dried fruit, which makes it much easier and less sticky to cut them. Or you can do the sneaky thing and just buy them already chopped. By the way, these are Deglet Noor dates, and you can find them in any supermarket. So my shallots have got nice color on them. I'm going to add a pinch of salt. Now we're going to add a few mint leaves. Let's do 4. Line up your herbs like a deck of cards. You roll them up tightly like a cigar, and then you just very quickly hit them with a very sharp knife so you don't bruise them. And this will go in last. All right. A little bit of lemon we're going to add. Tablespoon or so, depends on how sweet the butternut squash was. I'm going to start with some, we may add some more. And I have some pistachios. I love pistachios. This is a 1/3 cup of toasted chopped pistachios. In go our dates. Oh, it's so nice to work with the chopped ones. And I'm going to add a pinch of cayenne because butternut squash is very sweet, and I like to counterbalance sweetness with a little bit of spice. You can certainly leave it out if you want to, but it's just, they do a happy dance together. In goes our mint. I may garnish with a little more for dramatic effect. Okay, done. Fantastic, huh? I'm going to put it in this pretty bowl. You know, you put this on a table, it's just gorgeous. Okay, and there you have it, my shredded butternut squash with dates and pistachios. I am making this wonderful dish from a friend of mine called Rawia Bashara. She's Palestinian, lives in Israel, but has a restaurant in Brooklyn called Tannerine, and a wonderful book, Olives, Lemons, and Za'atar. And this is her recipe. Even though there are no Brussels sprouts where she grew up, she's realized they're so wonderful, she's adapted it. So these are fried lightly, and topped with a tahini yogurt and pomegranate molasses sauce. So let me get these guys frying first. We're doing shallow frying. It's about 1/4 inch of corn oil, and we want to get it hot. And I'm just cutting these guys in half. Brussels sprouts are wonderful because they store very well. They're like little cabbages, and they last quite well in the refrigerator, and they are so healthy for you. So I'm going to get these guys in here. You're going to see it bubbling up around this. These only take a couple of minutes. We're making a tahini sauce, and I've got some roasted sesame seed paste. Comes in a can, Middle Eastern. You can find it in the supermarket these days. 3/4 of a cup of tahini, and let me just get my garlic in there. We're going to do it in the food processor to get a nice smooth texture. So in goes our garlic, and then in goes 1/2 cup of fresh lemon juice. Now I'm going to add the salt, 1/2 teaspoon. I'm going to take a quick look at my Brussels sprouts and give them a turn. I want to get a little color on them. Okay, so let's see how we're doing with our sauce. Now see how nice and thick it is, but we want to thin it down a little bit. So we're going to add some water. 1/4 cup of water. All right, these look like they have nice color. Take a slotted spoon, put it on paper towels. All right, and I'm going to sprinkle them with a tiny bit of salt. It's a good idea to season them while they're still hot. And now, as if this isn't good enough already, we're going to make some panko, toasted panko breadcrumbs to sprinkle on top of the whole thing. We'll start with a tablespoon of olive oil. And the reason we're using panko is because, as you all know, they're Japanese breadcrumbs, and they get so much crispier than regular breadcrumbs, the regular dried ones. I'm going to add the garlic right now to let it heat up in the oil. I like to start it in cold oil because when you bring garlic up in cold oil, it sucks more flavor out of the garlic. We have our tahini, thick tahini sauce that we made, and we're going to take 1/2 cup of that and add it to some yogurt. Oh, I can see the garlic is getting somewhere. Don't want to ever burn the garlic. So let me go back and stir up the garlic and add the panko. And you got to keep an eye on the panko too, because they can go very fast. You don't want them too brown. And a pinch of salt, just a little pinch. Okay, so while that toasts away, coming back to my sauce, this goes in. Yes. And then in goes 1/2 cup of plain yogurt. Okay, and back to my crumbs. I told you they go fast. These crumbs, actually, if you make nothing else from this recipe, make these crumbs and put them on top of anything and everything. Pasta, you finished a quick pasta dish, sprinkle some crumbs on top. So, now we're gonna add a tablespoon of pomegranate molasses. Now, if you're not familiar with this, it's actually reduced pomegranate juice, and it gets really, really, really thick, you're gonna see. And it's just delightful. It's got terrific depth of flavor. And if you don't have it or can't find it, or you could use balsamic, which is similar, but not exactly the same. I'm gonna whisk it up. Takes a minute. Wow, doesn't that just look fantastic? Okay, I think I've got all of my parts ready. So here we go. We're going to start with our Brussels sprouts. Got a nice long platter here. And if you wanted to just quick reheat them, you could just throw them in the oven for a second. Oh gosh, these are so good. Just looking at them makes me hungry. And then we're going to spoon some of our sauce over. Finally, our breadcrumbs. And as if that wasn't good enough, a little bit of fresh chopped parsley. So there you have it, Rouia Bashara's Brussels sprouts with tahini yogurt pomegranate sauce, the perfect side dish for any holiday meal. For recipes, helpful tips, messages, and lots more, visit us on the web at saramoulton.com/weeknight meals. And go to our YouTube channel, Sarah's Weeknight Meals TV. Funding provided by
The 2016 Subaru Legacy. With symmetrical all-wheel drive plus 36 mpg. It pairs well with every kind of road. Subaru, proud sponsor of Sarah's Weeknight Meals.
and thanks to the generous support of